Hello and welcome to the Women Racing to Win. Joe Samaniego here along with Daniel from Racers, the girls behind the helmet. Got a lot to talk about, including, of course, Indianapolis 500, NASCAR Circuits of America. We'll start with Monaco and Formula Regionals going on over there.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. As you said, Joe, it will be a pretty busy couple of weeks here from Monaco, then Indianapolis coming up. Last weekend it was the Monaco Grand Prix was back after 1 year hiatus, and we actually understood how much we missed it when the cars hit the track again on the streets of Monaco, on the legendary streets of Monaco. Some really historic corners there, and it's I would say that it's a dream for pretty much any driver that since they start their careers in karts. So it was really interesting to see also some of the younger formulas, some younger drivers racing in Formula 2 and also in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. Also hitting the track in Monaco. For some of them was of course the first time in this iconic track. Among them was Lina Buller, of course, the Swiss driver, 23-year-old driver, who is racing for the first time in Formula 3 this year. She's racing in the Formula Regional by Alpine for Team RAce GP. Last year, she was racing in Spanish Formula 4 in her very first season of Formula car racing. After a pretty good career in European karting, she did very well in the Spanish Formula 4 and made the step up to Formula 3 regional with the Tattoos Formula 3 car that is also used in some other regional Formula 3 championship, like the Asian Formula 3, like the Formula Renault Euro Cup, the W Series also as well. And Lina was forced to miss the first part of the season due to an injury. She fractured her hand at the very first session in Imola in the preseason testing, and so she was out for the whole preseason testing in Imola, in Paul Ricard, and Barcelona, and missed the first race, obviously, of the season in Imola. She was back in Barcelona for the second race, and she actually did pretty well. She was in the mix. Her pace was decent, considering, of course, that this is a massively competitive championship. There are over 30 cars, like 34 cars in the grid of some of the most talented young drivers. Most of them are also part of some young driver academies, of Formula 1 drivers academies, of course. And so Lina was thrown at the deep end of this championship without testing, with basically no seat time, but she did pretty well in Barcelona. Had a clean weekend, no mistakes, finished all the two races, and her pace improved session after session. So coming into Monaco, of course, she had quite a challenge because of the inherent difficulty of the track. But again, she had a very clean weekend, never scrapped the wall, which is for any rookie in Monaco, in Formula 1 as well, let alone in the feeder series. It is a massive challenge, and she did very well, actually. She was there improving, also not far off the pace from the front runners. Unfortunately, there was one more challenge for the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine drivers this year in Monaco, because of the grid is so crowded with 34 cars. The Monaco track can only take 28 cars. So there in qualifying, 5 cars were out from race 1, and 5 other cars were out from race 2. So it was one more challenge for these young drivers, and some more pressure for them. And Lina qualified P27 for the first race, so she was in for the first race, which is in itself a pretty decent achievement, considering her very small track time and her experience that she has in this car. And unfortunately, she was P31 in the second one. So she could not take the start of Sunday's race, but still she had something to prove in the first one. She started in P27, and she had a mega race, actually. But she managed to finish P20 in Monaco, gaining everyone that knows the Monaco Grand Prix and has even seen just one Formula One race there, knows how much it is a difficult track to pass. And Lena managed to pass 7 cars and finished P20. It was her first top 20 of the season. So I would say that it was a pretty successful weekend for Lena, even though she was out of the second race and she watched from the pit wall. Now the Formula Regional by European Championship by Alpine will be back just 7 days after the Monaco race. They will be back always in the south of France at Paul Ricard, Circuit Paul Ricard, for the 4th round of the season. Where also Belen Garcia will be back because, of course, Belen started the season. She was announced for a part-time campaign with G4 Racing. Of course, she didn't know. She doesn't know race after race if she will be back for the next one, which is always a tricky situation for any driver in any championship. But of course, she's also racing with the W Series this year, so she has like this priority to prioritize that program. And she was in the north of Wales at Anglesey circuit last weekend for the collective test with W Series. So she had to miss the Monaco Grand Prix, which is, of course, something that every driver, you always dream of being in such an important race. So when that clash of calendar, I'm sure that she wasn't very happy about it. But of course, she did the right thing and went to the 5-day collective testing of W Series. But obviously, we had a communication that it wasn't sure actually, but she will be back now for the 4th round at Paul Ricard. She has also tested in pre-season on that circuit, so she has some experience of this circuit, and we're sure that both Lena and Belen will make the most out of their experience that is growing race after race, and will show some more improvements coming into the next race this weekend.
Very exciting stuff, especially to overtake 7 vehicles in Monaco. That is really impressive. Very hard track to overtake anytime. And to do that from the back, what an impressive effort from Lena. And of course, as you mentioned, qualifying, trying to get in the race. Well, this weekend for Simona de Silvestro, it was a very tense weekend at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, qualifying for the 105th running of the Indianapolis 500 race. Is very unique because with IndyCar and the Indianapolis 500, no team is guaranteed a starting spot. In NASCAR, top 36 that own a charter, they're guaranteed to start a race. Formula One, the 10 teams are guaranteed to start both their cars. But in the Indianapolis 500, no team, only the fastest 33 in qualifying make the race, and the qualifying is a 4-lap average. So 4 laps of full throttle, 230 miles per hour. Just the slightest let off the gas, your lap is ruined, and likely your chances of getting in. And especially if you were part of Chevrolet. This year, it seems Chevrolet, they were struggling, and Team Penske was surprisingly struggling. Of course, Team Penske, they got a partnership with Beretta Autosport this year. So this year, it was really just circumstances of the Chevrolets being behind Honda. We saw this last year at the Indianapolis 500. This year, it seemed to be really bad to the point where Will Power, Simona de Silvestro, and 3 other Chevrolets were all fighting to try to get the last row. No Honda was in contention of being eliminated, just those Chevrolets. Saturday, essentially once we saw that all set, it comes down to Sunday. The big thing was who was going to get in, and essentially the drama really picked up. We saw Sage Karam put down a fast lap, then Will Power put down a fast lap just about touching the wall. Of course, there they had the safer barrier, not exactly the concrete barrier. So it was something where it was really, really tense. And then Simona went out, made her laps. She came in 33rd. So that meant if either Charlie Kimball or another driver were to go out there and make the qualifying laps and bump her out, she would be the first one bumped out, and she would have to go out again to set some fast laps. This was a very tense moment. Charlie Kimball, in fact, went on a couple of times trying to get that last spot in there, which would result in Simona getting bumped out of the field. However, he was on the track when the gun went off, so that meant he was the last qualifying attempt. And by the end of the first lap, everybody knew he was not with the pace to get in. So big, really, for Simona, Beretta Autosport. And after the 4-lap time average for Charlie Kimball came in, it was confirmed that Simona de Silvestro is in the Indianapolis 500 for 2021. Unfortunately, nobody has ever won the Indianapolis 500 from the last row. The big challenge will be for her and all the Chevrolet drivers, Honda. Honda, they are looking really fast. It seems like with the weather conditions, even if it is cool, where the track's a lot more grippy, still that means the Honda are going to have that grip to put down all the horsepower. Maybe we have a really hot, sunny day where we see handling is going to be an issue, and that grip could essentially be a little bit harder for the Honda drivers to handle all that horsepower. That could be a big benefit for Chevrolet, but still, it looks like Honda's going to be one of the favorites. And in fact, we saw Honda, while we had all Chevrolets bound for the back row, we had all Hondas bound for the pole, and essentially there was 2 Chevrolets from Ed Carpenter Racing. Those two seem to finally figure out something for the Indianapolis 500, which is Sunday, and at 10 a.m. we'll have a special grid live pre-race for the Indianapolis 500. We'll both be there. We'll talk a little bit more about Simona, as well as the retired field, and of course, for Simona being in the race after last year, no female racer was in the greatest spectacle of all sport. We're very excited for her and Beretta Autosport. I'm very excited to talk about the 12 hours of Hockenheim next.
Yeah, as you said, it's a pretty busy schedule for motorsport for after Monaco. Then it's going to be Indianapolis. So 2 of the 3 big races with the 24-hour of Le Mans. And speaking of endurance racing, the 24-hour series by Creventic is probably one of the most popular in Europe and internationally about GT and endurance racing. And it's actually a series that provides great racing and competitive racing, and also very competitive female drivers in the past couple of years. One of them is Samantha Tan, racing in her own ST Racing BMW M4 in the GT4 category. But there's also Jasmine Preissig, the Swiss driver racing for Autorama Motorsport in the Volkswagen Golf in TCR. Also, there is Corinna Gostner, the Italian racing for MP Racing in the Mercedes AMG GT3 category. Some of the races they are also joined by Manuela Gostner, who's probably most famous driver of the family. She's racing, of course, in both the European Le Mans Series and in the World Endurance Championship. So a really elite racing driver who is joined by her father Thomas and her brother David, together with her sister Corinna. In Hockenheim, there was only Corinna, because Manuela was not available to race there. Even she did initially appear on the entry list, but then she was not in the race. And also joining the 12-hour of Hockenheim ring was the Lithuanian Ernesta Globite. So I apologize for any Lithuanian viewers currently watching if my pronunciation is not correct. She was racing in the GSR Motorsport Volkswagen Golf, always in TCR. And it was her first entry since 2019. So she was away from racing for quite a while, but she did make the 12-hour of Hockenheim this past weekend. So really interesting race for all the female drivers there, and Samantha Tan in GT4 leading the standings after the first race. She won the Dubai 24-hour. She won the racing in Abu Dhabi as well. She was second in Mugello, and then she had a unfortunate retirement at the Paul Ricard race. So she started the season very well, and then she had trouble in the second part of the season so far. And coming into Hockenheim, of course, they had high hopes. They really wanted to get back to the first place in the standings. They're battling with the Pro Sport Aston Martin in the GT4 category. And also in TCR, Jasmine Pricey was second in the inaugural season of the inaugural race of the season in Dubai. Here she is, her Twitter handles and Instagram. You can definitely go check these drivers out on social media. Jasmine had an unfortunate round in the Mugello, and she couldn't even take the start because of an unfortunate accident by one of our teammates in practice. A huge accident, and the car could not be repaired, so they did not start the race. And then she's also racing in the German Nürburgring Langstrecke series, the formerly known as the VLN. So she is combining two racing programs this year. So she was not at Paul Ricard. And then switched from the 112 car to the sister number 1 car for Hockenheim. So a change in the lineup for her, but always in the Autorama Motorsport team. And the race was really interesting because Samantha was leading the GT4 category for throughout the whole 6 hour and a half. The race was split into, like in Mugello, in 2 parts. One on Saturday of 6 hour and a half, and then 5 hour and a half to the checkered flag on Sunday. And they led the whole first part of the race unchallenged. They had like 6 laps of advantage over the closest competitor. And coming into the second part of the race, unfortunately, just 1 hour into the second part of the race on Sunday, they had a brake disc exploding into a pretty fast part of the track as well. And so they had to pit, of course, and they lost 24 minutes of racing, and they dropped, of course, 6 laps behind the leader. So it was again a very challenging race for Samantha Tan and her team. And when they started, but they had the pace, of course, and they started again to make up time and to recover. And they were with 2 hours to go, 1.5 hours to go, they were back to 2 laps down. So had charged back and were looking strong for a strong finish. And they had another failure, a bent subframe on the rear of the car. And unfortunately, that was quite it for their day. But they had completed 60% of the race, so they were still classified, and they were classified second. So it was still good points for Samantha Tan and her team. Not quite the result they wanted. Of course, they are losing quite a lot of points from their main competitors. But still good points coming into the next round will be the Portimao 24 hours. But it was actually a great race for Jasmine, who won the TCR category, which were incredibly closely fought. At the end, the first 2 cars, the number 1 Volkswagen Golf Autorama Motorsport that we are seeing now, and the TCR, the second finisher, which was the Audi number 118. They were separated only by 4.3 seconds after 12 hours of racing. So it was really, really competitive. And also the third car was the second Autorama Motorsport Volkswagen. So really closely fought. And Jasmine drove great stints, both on Saturday and on Sunday. She claimed the lead into the final minutes of the first part of the race. They were starting 4th, so a pretty challenging first part of the race. But they were really really hit their marks, and Jasmine drove great and claimed the lead into the final minutes of Saturday, and then didn't have any reliability issues, which was kind of the big deal in the TCR category. and they won the race in both the TCE category and the TCR category. So pretty great for a weekend for Jasmine Preissig. And Ernesta Globite, the Lithuanian driver for GSR Motorsport, they were third. They had pretty a troubled race with some reliability issues, and also a contact with a Porsche coming into the second part of the race. But they finished P3 in TCR and P6 in TCE. Also, we are seeing here the green, the beautiful green MP Motorsport Mercedes of the Gosner family. And they unfortunately had a really troubled race, a lot of incidents, and also some reliability issues coming into Sunday, and they stopped for like 4 hours into Sunday. And so they were like P23, quite a race to forget for them. But the Gosner family is making progress because they are quite new to endurance racing. They have pretty big experience of the Ferrari Challenge races in Europe, which are of course sprint races. So they're kind of new to endurance racing, but they're having some good improvements into the 24-hour championship. And as we said, the next race will be at Portimao, Portugal, for the 24-hour race there.
Portimao, that is a very exciting track to follow from Hockenheim. And it's really interesting, despite the change from the old Hockenheim, where they used to race in the forest, still high speeds and hard on the brakes seems to be something that the characteristic of that has not changed, despite a much shorter layout that we do see at Hockenheim. One of the big tracks that we saw, which again, we saw some high speeds and hard braking, Circus of America here in the United States, and it hosted a wet weekend for the NASCAR National Series. You had the NASCAR Cup Series, the NASCAR Xfinity Series, and the NASCAR Truck Series. Wet conditions for everybody, intense racing for the drivers, especially since a lot of these drivers are used to dry conditions and ovals. We throw them in the road course and we throw rain in there, and just made for a crazy weekend, especially since no one had raced in Circus America with these vehicles before. NASCAR did bring qualifying and some practice to each series that include the truck series. 43 trucks attempted to qualify, but only 36 were going to qualify for the race. And unfortunately, Jennifer Jo Cobb was unable to qualify for the race. Tough break for her. She had made every race this year. In fact, last year, it wasn't until the second round of the 2020 race, the last race she didn't qualify for. So she had a good record going of qualifying for each race. And unfortunately, that made it to the end. Just did not have the speed for this race. This could be an issue, especially when NASCAR goes back to point systems standing, plus your prior race results to determine where you start. We've seen some drivers like Jordan Anderson miss the Daytona race. They hadn't been able to start a NASCAR Xfinity race until this weekend. So it could be very hard for her, especially depending on what happens with the next coming weeks and how many trucks try to enter. One truck that we see enter with a new driver, Michelle Abadi, definitely very big weekend for her. Of course, she does a lot of Trans Am West racing here in the United States. They even did national race towards the end of 2020. This was her first time in the NASCAR Truck Series, posting great stuff on her social media page, especially Instagram, answering fans' questions of the difference between the Trans Am and the truck. Of course, the truck much more heavier, a lot more horsepower as well. And of course, that's compared to Xfinity and the Cup Series, where they even have more horsepower. At the end, Michelle had a pretty solid race weekend, kept everything clean, finished in the top 20 as well. And overall, she said it was it went perfectly for me. I had never driven a truck until Friday practice, and it was such an awesome experience to race in the rain. Very grateful for the opportunity. I hope to have more in the future, and we definitely hope to see her more in the future in the truck series, and especially the road course races where she is really good at. One driver that improved tremendously, considering her road course experience hasn't been that great in the truck series, Haley Deegan. She started 28th, kept the truck clean for the most of the race. We did see the track start to dry up, and she came home 14th place, a big accomplishment for her and that team, considering how the Daytona road course, he started off pretty clean, and then towards the end, they got caught up in some last-minute cautions, and then at the end, stalled out in the last lap, didn't finish. That put her way behind, and essentially she's been climbing up that. Now to be finishing 14th, very likely she could be starting within the top 20, and with some of these tracks coming up, I think it could really help her progress in her rookie season. And we got to progress to the upcoming races. We got quite a lot this race weekend.
Yeah, indeed, quite a lot. As you said, Joe, it's the big weekend of the greatest spectacle in racing, in the 500 with Simone De Silvestro for Paretta Autosport. They made history in qualifying, but now it's time to race. So we're definitely looking forward to see the female forward team, Paretta Autosport, racing for their first time in an IndyCar race. And also, it's going to be the second round of the season for Extreme E. We covered the first round in the Desert X Prix in Saudi Arabia. And now it's time for the Ocean X Prix in Senegal, in Dakar, which is obviously a place with plenty of motorsport heritage. Dakar, of course, Jamie Chadwick, Sarah Price, Christina Gutierrez, Molly Taylor, who won the first race of the season and the very first race of the championship. Claudia Hergen, Michaela Olen-Kotulinski, Katie Munnings, Laia Sanz, and Christine Giampaoli Zonca will be racing there. So nine teams and 9 female drivers, one each team. That's one of the most important features of this pretty impressive new championship. Then, of course, it's going to be the fourth round of the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, as we previously said, at Paul Ricard with Lena Buller and Belen Garcia. Also, at the same track, it will be the GT, the 1,000 kilometers of Paul Ricard valid for the GT World Challenge Europe. It's going to be the very first time that an all-female team enters a race in the GT World Challenge Europe. There were previously female entries, but never they shared a car before. So that's going to be a pretty also some history making there. With the Iron Dames, they brought an all-female team in ELMS, in WEC, in Ferrari Challenge, and now it's time also for GT World Challenge Europe. So it's all they're carrying momentum. Also, team great stuff from them. Catherine Legg, Sarah Bovey, and Dorian Pin will be starting the race for them. Also, the Spanish Formula 4 second round at Navarra in Spain with Lola Lovin-Foss and Emily De Heus. In the same weekend, also at Navarra, there will be the very first race of the newly born Spanish TCR Championship with Michelle Halder racing there. She has been racing in the German TCR Championship in 2019, then made the switch to European TCR last year. And now this year, she will be racing in the Spanish-based TCR Championship. Ferrari Challenge Europe, also massively interesting because Michel Gatting is leading the standings with 3 victories and 2 pole positions in the first 2 rounds of the season in Monza and at the Red Bull Ring. They will be racing in the Czech Republic at Brno this weekend. So Michel Gatting definitely one to watch there. And as you said, the NASCAR Truck Series going back to more of a familiar track after the Circuit of the Americas. They will be racing at Charlotte Motor Speedway with Haley Deegan and Jennifer Jo Cobb being on the grid.
And definitely we encourage everyone to be sure to visit the website, Racers Behind the Helmet. Here you can see the full calendar of all the upcoming races this weekend, everything Daniel has mentioned, and a lot more. And of course, you click on the icon there, you can see the drivers and follow the events live. So we highly encourage everyone to visit the website. Definitely cheer for all the drivers that we talked about, as well as all the ones that we haven't had a chance to talk about today on the show. For Daniel at Racers, the girls behind the helmet, I'm Joe Samaniego. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you next time.
Joe Samaniego here. Want to invite you to go check out Poblis. Poblis is a dog clothing and accessory company based in Austria. 10% of each of your purchases goes to helping dogs in need, whether it's homeless, sick, or ill dogs. This is one of the reasons why we support it. Kiska here is a rescue dog from rural Alaska and our grid office dog. We care about our furry buddies, and we know you do as well. Definitely check out pawbliss.com. There's a link on the video description, and by clicking on that link, you get a 10% discount on your purchase as well.